Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Black Meditations with Dr. Caesar. We are very excited as we continue this wonderful series, the series that's entitled Black Men's Wellness as well as Self-Care and Mental Health. Today we have our wonderful guest, Franklin Edwards, who is going to be speaking about the abundance mentality as well as giving us some tips and pointers on finances. Before we start, I would like to take the chance to introduce our wonderful guest, our wonderful co-host who helped create the series. The first person I would like to introduce is Ms. Taliba Onyebuchi. Ms. Taliba Onyebuchi is a vegan health and wellness coach and former court-appointed special advocate. She has also recently been viewed in the wonderful series that has just shown, that's also on Amazon, called Underground. Okay, so not only is she a health vegan coach, overall wonderful woman, community advocate, she's also an actress. Our next guest, our next co-host of this series is Miss Tamara Rushing. Miss Tamara is a mother, holistic healer, and a woman of faith. She is an expert at balancing holistic and traditional medicine to fight against breast cancer with years of experience. She credits positive thinking, natural remedies, and the teachings of Dr. Sebi and Louise Hayes as keys to her resiliency and steadfastness within her healing process. Ms. Rushing has spoken to many women and community members concerning holistic practices, finding happiness after toxic relationships, and financial fortitude. In addition, she was featured on the Wanda Williams Internet Cafe show discussing the divine integrated approach to healing cancer. So I just want to make sure that our co-hosts and co-series creators have a time to say hello before I introduce Franklin Edwards.
Hi.
Well, hello and welcome to our Zoom discussion today. I look forward to a lively discussion today.
Now I would like to go ahead and read the beautiful bio of Franklin Edwards. If you just kind of give me a moment. All right. Franklin Edwards is a servant, father, musician, and songwriter. For the past 8 years, he has served as a retirement planning specialist. He helps families protect their greatest assets by providing strategies that will improve their financial well-being, positively impacting their life and health. His passion includes serving his community by educating people on strategies they can use to protect their family and financial legacy. He proudly helps his community gain victory over the enemies of accumulating wealth. Franklin enjoys the privilege of helping hardworking Americans protect their retirement, eliminate debt, and create additional tax-free income that they cannot outlive. He earned his bachelor's of psychology in 2007 and a master's of accounting and financial management in 2011. Franklin lived in the Metro Atlanta for 14 years and is a native of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Can we please welcome Franklin to our wonderful show today?
Thank you, Dr. Caesar. It's a privilege. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Franklin. I'm so excited. And we get to end this series talking about abundance mentality. So we're very excited to share this not only with the brothers, but with the Black community overall. Just a reminder to those of you all who are on the Zoom chat, if you're not talking or asking a question, just make sure that you can mute yourself. I know, for example, I'm currently at a hotel, so I have to mute myself because you're going to hear children splashing in pool if I don't mute myself. So I just want to make sure you all be mindful of the noise. If you are watching via Zoom, please feel free to ask a question in the chat section. There will be a few of us who will be responding to your questions and comments in the chat section. So I would like to pass it over to Taliba, who will be asking the pop culture question.
All right, let's go. Franklin, we'd like to know, what is a common misconception about Black people and money?
That's a good question. I would say a common misconception about Black people and money is that generally, I would say, especially in the United States, generally, there's an idea that's portrayed that Black people are broke and that we don't know how to manage our money. That's honestly, that's a myth, because we have many countries across the country where you see Black people, even though it's portrayed that we have a lower income across the country. We're in the lower income bracket. We make up a lot of the middle class, and our wealthier populations are growing, especially in major cities like Philadelphia, Atlanta, Los Angeles. There's continuous growth within the socioeconomic strata for Black people.
Thank you
I
for
love
your
that. And
answer.
yeah, this is Tamara. I love that. And it helps me to dive right into another very important question in which we ask all of our guests, which is about self-care. That's another kind of misconception too, especially within the Black community, about us taking care of ourselves, self-care. So we ask this for each guest, and it's, what does self-care mean to you? And kind of a combination question. Why is self-care important? And what are some of the challenges that can prevent self-care from happening? And, you know, how do you kind of be successful with it? So again, what is it to you? Why is it important? And what challenges can prevent? And how do you, you know, set yourself up for success in the area of self-care?
For me, self-care is a holistic question. As it regards to your personal self-care, it's being able to take care of your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. From a financial perspective, I equate self-care to money management. Being able to have the necessary tools to plan your money so that you can achieve the goals that you need to achieve. Money in itself really has no emotion. It's an intangible. It does nothing for you outside of the value that you personally place on it. So your ability to manage those funds will determine what barriers you do have or what barriers you don't have in regards to achieving your goals. What's the other two questions that you asked me related to self-care?
I think you kind of covered what it is and why it's important, but kind of, you know, what are the challenges that prevent people from, you know, exercising self-care, I would say, and how do you personally set yourself up for success, especially in your capacity as a father, a community leader, and a financial advisor?
I would say the major barrier to self-care from a financial perspective would be breaking traditions, because usually people are taught to manage money based on what they've been taught from their parents or grandparents prior to. And if you have fragments in the family, or you don't have examples of seeing your parents or seeing some role model manage money, it makes it difficult for you yourself. You have to now figure it out yourself. You've heard before that you know, anyone can accomplish a goal, but you can get there so much faster if you have a mentor. So if you don't have the proper information, if you're not taught, and if you don't have examples to kind of direct you in the best ways to manage your money, it extends your failure period or your learning curve and cause you to take a little longer to achieve your goals that you want to achieve.
Thank you
I
so
love that. I'll turn the mic over to Dr. Caesar.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for asking those questions. I mean, I really love how you said self-care is money management. And I just want to say, ouch, right? Because we don't talk about money and self-care, right? We do not talk about these things together. And so I'm so excited to kind of hear your journey and how you've been able to help families, right? Look at self-care from an abundant, holistic perspective. That is caring not only for their now, but also their future. And then you said that it prevents your failure. You know, if you have a plan, you will prevent, you know, the ongoing failure. So thank you so much, Franklin, for just talking about those things. Uh I would like to go on to the next question. The question is, why did you go into finances? What was your motivation for going into finances?
Very good question. I would say my personality, I have this curiosity with my personality where I like to figure out things. And growing up in the Virgin Islands, I won't say we were poor. We had really everything that we need. I think I would say I grew up in the lower middle class, very lower middle class. And there were a lot of gaps that we didn't have. Me personally, I saw examples of my parents managing money, even though they did it totally differently. Like my father would stay up late and write down his numbers of what he needs to do, whereas my mother would do her things in the day and she would plan it out differently. They didn't plan together, which was a barrier to relationship success. But I saw examples of that and I took that into life as I went along. By the time I went to college, because certain things weren't in place or I didn't have the proper information, like most African Americans, I did like what we most do. We go and we fill out the FAFSA and we get as many loans as we can to get a college education, and we say we leave the rest in God's hands. And yeah, God does absolutely provide. But at the back end now, you come out of college where you're trying to start a life and you have 5 and 6 figures worth of student loans, you're already starting with a major barrier to success. So instead of taking jobs that I've wanted to take directly, I had to take subpar jobs that I didn't want to take. And then having to deal with that and also having to have a family now, there was the challenge of, trying to be a man and provide for your family while having 2 young kids. And when I got into, I would say, the pace of my career, in my background in psychology, that was around 2008, around the real estate recession, the real estate bust that they had. And by the time I came to Atlanta around that time, I was in line with the guy who had a doctorate degree, and I was in line with the guy who had a high school degree, and we were all applying for the same job. So it was extremely difficult. So my thought was, why not go and get more student loans and get another degree so I could become more marketable? That opened up a lot of opportunities for me, absolutely, but it didn't provide additional job opportunities per se. So the one thing that it did provide for me, it allowed me to tap into my interest in financial literacy and my interest in financial education on a deeper level. And it helped me to see that these problems I'm having in regards to stacking up student loans to get an education, to find success into a career, it was all based on my mindset. And if I had that mindset, then there are hundreds of other people who look just like me that have similar mindset due to lack of information. There, with that, my journey took me where, after being in situations with jobs where I would interview but just couldn't get the job, life kind of brought me to a situation where I was faced with getting into the insurance industry. And it was something initially I did not want to do, but I saw opportunity there and I said, let me get uncomfortable and jump into something that I may actually like. And 8 years later, I've never looked back. I absolutely enjoy it because it has put me in front of all walks of life, put me in front of people that had real problems. And because of my background in psychology, I was able to observe, even with different age groups, the relationship that stress plays on families and individuals when their finances aren't in order, and the relief that they experience when they have a financial solution, when they have a clear path for where they want to go, and when they have when the barriers removed for them to be able to achieve the goals they want to achieve. And that's why I keep doing it, to make a difference.
Wow, that's an awesome response. And I'm sure myself and others on the line and beyond can really relate to that about like student loans and just kind of trying to navigate that. I love in the pop culture question that Saliba asked about the misconceptions of like Black people and money, which kind of segue into question number 2, which is, what are some of the enemies of accumulating in wealth? And not just the surface thing like the student loans, just even deeper, like on a spiritual, mental, emotional level. What would you say are some of the enemies to accumulating wealth, and what is the importance of retirement? So the accumulating wealth and the importance of retirement.
I would say the 3 main enemies, but actually it's 4. Those enemies are 1, education or the lack thereof as it regards to financial literacy, taxes, inflation, and debt. Those are the 3 or 4 major enemies as it regards to accumulating wealth. I would say education, financial literacy, because if you don't know, that's the whole point of going to school, to know, to learn so that you can advance yourself. And if you don't understand the laws, the principles, and the system, the monetary system in this capitalist society that we live in, then you're always going to be at a disadvantage, and you're going to feel like the world is against you, the man is against you, the system is against you, because you don't understand how the system works. So the system can never work in your favor if you're not educated. Taxes are generally, when you start a job, you think, I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to start off making a good career. I'm going to, be able to put money aside for savings. And one of the first new family members, adopted family members that young people get introduced to when they start a job is your Uncle FICO. And I like to call you Uncle FICO because he just shows up and he says, hey, I'm here and I'm going to be here to stay, especially if you're working for someone. He generally takes his share off the top. And most people, your initial thought is, okay, FICO is taking this much. I need to work more hours, or get a better job so that I can overcome FICO. But that's a myth, because the reality is the more money you make, the more FICO will take. So you need to find ways to avoid that, to minimize your tax exposure, finding opportunities where you have skills and talents that you can redirect into businesses helps you to minimize that tax exposure. A lot of people, as it regards to education, they don't know that there are different options outside of your 401k and things of that nature that help you to set aside money to avoid some of those taxes legally without having any issues, so that you can have a retirement later on that you can live comfortably or live at whatever level you want to accomplish in living. One of the issues that we have here in America is that, you know, most people are on what I like to call the 40-40 plan, the 40-40-40 plan, in that you work 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week actually, for 40 years, and then you expect to retire comfortably because you've worked so hard and you deserve it. What most people don't realize is you're going to end up retiring and living on about 40% less than what you were earning. Now, with all the challenges going on, and when you add the other enemy of inflation, when you started working 40 years later, the cost of bread isn't the same. Now you have to also add your medical costs because that's going to raise, and every other cost in life. So all those things play a factor, not just in regards to your ability to live at the level you want to live, but it also plays a factor in regards to the kind of stress you have to manage. Because after working all this time, most people, I don't think most people say, I'm going to put in 40 years, I'm going to get my watch, I'm going to get my plaque from my job for my time served, and then I'm going to pick up a part-time job at the golf club, as a caddy or working at Walmart, doing part-time work. Most people don't visualize that for retirement, but unfortunately, that turns out to be a reality for most people because they don't understand that there's a gap there that will occur in their income if they don't provide the proper supplements and get the education they need to fill the gaps in their income as they transition from one phase of life to the other.
Thank you so much.
So
I really appreciate that. And I just had a quick question. If you can just provide us, what is financial literacy? Because we talk about literacy, but for the listener, can you explain what does it mean to be financially literate?
Okay. Literate. Let's compare that to being able to read. You are literate when you're able to pick up a book, read the words, and comprehend what it's saying. When you apply that to financials, financial literacy is being able to look at the financial systems in place, how they work, and then applying that to your personal life for the goals that you want to achieve financially. An interesting information, just to put this out there, in a country actually that's, I would say America is worldwide, we're probably one of the most, if not the most abundant country financially. We're also we carry the largest debt than most countries in the world. But when it comes to financial literacy, only 4 states out of all the 50 states, only 4 states teach financial literacy in the classroom on a high school level. Tennessee is one of those states, and then there are 3 others, but there are only 4 states out of all the 50 that teach financial literacy. And that is a deficiency because as soon as you go into college, you're getting bombarded. I remember when I went into college, the first set of things that I got in the mail other than student loan information was my first credit card. And no one educated me on how to effectively use a credit card. I was blessed that growing up in school, I went to school, I don't know if I'll be aging myself by saying this, but I went to school during a time where you were taught the importance of managing some money in a family. You were taught how to balance your checkbook. You know, you were taught, given case studies of what if and how would I manage my household. You took classes that would allow you to practice those things. But the practical use of the things that you would have to deal with every day, like you apply for a credit card just because you're a freshman and they send you 10 credit card applications and you apply for all of them and they happen to give you 6 out of the 10. And then you say, hey, what do I do with this money now? And that's where it becomes an issue, because no one throughout your life, especially before college, taught you about the importance of discipline and the emotions that affect your impulses as it regards to money. Most of us say, hey, I got $500. Let's go maybe buy, $250 worth of things that we don't need or depreciables. No one thinks about, hey, I'm in college now. I have a skill. Maybe I know how to cut hair. Why don't I go and buy me a barber's apron and buy me some hair supplies, and I could do some hair on the weekends while I'm trying to get by in school. So no one shows us that, hey, we can leverage credit. Even though we don't have any money, we can leverage credit to add value to our community with the skills and services that we have. And then by the time we get that education, we already have all this barrier of debt that prevents us from, in many cases, prevents us from taking that step of faith to move forward into whatever it is we want to do.
Absolutely. And in addition to, impediments, one of the other impediments is health, and with the stress of debt. And so the next question, number 3, is what are some challenges in particular, because in particular for Black men what is some challenges that Black men experience with money that impact their health? So what are some of those challenges you would say that can impact their health?
Some of the challenges I would say is succumbing to the pressures that the world around you or society tells you that you need to fit into this mold. Many people, unfortunately, many of our young men, we get told that, hey, you need to get into music, or you need to get into sports in order to be successful. And I'm sure all of our young men have a plethora of other talents, but we get narrow-minded and focus on this one area or these 2 areas, or because we don't have the work ethic and the emotional discipline, we get too focused on finding or getting access to a quick buck. And I could even reference, there's a text, Ecclesiastes 5:10, that says, whoever loves money will never have enough. And whoever seeks wealth, they'll never be satisfied with the income that they have. So you get used to chasing after the money, and money can be so elusive in that you'll be chasing after it and you think you have it because you made something for today, but it's not carrying you forward because you're constantly chasing it. Whereas if you focus on your ability to increase your skill level, your ability to identify problems, your ability to serve others and add value to your community, the money itself will come to you. And I've experienced that firsthand, especially being in financial services. I wake up every day just trying to find problems to solve. And, God puts me in front of enough problems to pay my children's school tuition, to manage my lifestyle, things of that nature. And to the point now, I'm not really focused on being a baller or being rich or having a mansion. I'm just focused on, finding as many people as possible that I can serve.
Thank you so much, Franklin. And I think that really goes into another question that we have is what is an abundance mentality on accumulating wealth? And I do believe we've already kind of talked about it, with this particular idea of, centering yourself within your community and seeing how you add value, right, to the spaces that you are in. But I want to know if you can add a little bit more to that. What is an abundance mentality, and how is that different from a scarcity or limited mentality that sometimes we have when it comes to finances?
I would guess the easiest way to explain that would be the example of the glass that's half empty versus the glass that's half full. An abundance mentality is seeing that there are opportunities out there. And if you add value, if you increase your own personal value, then you'll be able to have access to whatever you need. Whereas a scarcity mentality is saying, when you use phrases like, the man is keeping me down, or I feel limited because of my family situation, or different things of that nature. Anything where you set up barriers for yourself that limit your potential, that creates a scarcity mindset. Not understanding who you are and whose you are. Because if you understand, many of times, especially in the Black community, we get focused on our resources and we totally neglect the source of those resources. All good things come from the Creator. So if you're looking for opportunities to increase your abundance, you have to tap into the Creator for that. Absolutely. Or some people, they believe in karma. So if you feel that you're adding value by putting good out in the world, whatever you put out comes back to you on so many more levels than you were able to offer it out. And that's just how the way the world works. However, if you're limited in your mindset, you're gonna always feel like there's something keeping you back, or there's you'll literally not have motivation at some point to go out and do what needs to be done. I've been there at several areas in my life until I realized that, hey, everything that I need, the Creator had put in place for me to take advantage of. And that's when doors started to open up for me myself.
So how did you make the shift? You talked about the pressures that Black men succumb to that causes them to kind of go down this spiral, right? When it comes to wealth building and having money and keeping up with the Joneses, if you will say.
Right.
What caused you to shift from that particular stereotypical attitude towards wealth to one that's more holistic and centered in your values and how you contribute positively to your community?
What made me make the change? It was several things. One, observing the world around me. Say, for instance, I have this thing where I guess some people have their knack about cars. I like real estate. There was a time I used to drive around, take Sundays or the weekends, I'd drive around through the projects or the ghetto. And then I drive around through more affluent areas in Atlanta. And I used to ask myself, what are the differences? And in some areas, they would have more depreciable assets like nice cars, but they were living on Section 8. And many of those were minorities. Whereas in the affluent areas, they could have had a car that looked like it was broken down, but their house was absolutely fabulous. And those were appreciating assets, so to speak. So I used to ask myself, what was the mindset behind that? And I realized that, it wasn't so much about the money that you had, but it was about understanding that there's discipline. You have to have discipline when it comes to your finances. You have to have goals, and you have to be able to block out the distractions. Things like what feels good. Driving a nice car feels good, but if you're not meeting the needs of your family, then what's the point? Because it looks good outside, but when you get home, no finance, no romance. You have issues with the kids, all of this other stuff going on. So that was one thing that played into my shift. And then the other thing was sitting down with families that had insurance and families that didn't have insurance, and watching how they managed that situation when they were in the worst case scenario. Many times I sit down with families dealing with the insurance needs, and sometimes the wife or the female significant other, she doesn't want to appear stressed because she doesn't really know me. I'm meeting them for the first time, but she would express things about, you know, if something were to happen to you, what would happen to us? And that was a direct, significant issue as it relates to her security. Whereas the man on the other end, he would think, if I were to get this insurance policy, it would be an expense to the family, not a benefit. Or he would think, now she'd have a reason to kill me. You know, they'd say things like that jokingly, but there was something to it because there were other stresses that were created by finances in the family. I would not be able to know all of them, but I'd be able to see some things just from sitting down with a family and seeing the challenges that it would cause over finances. Most people don't know, but when you look at like the top 5 reasons for couples having divorce in America, at least, or even around the world, but specifically in the US, all the reasons that are there, the top 5 center around lack of communication, lack of intimacy, and the lack of or misuse of finances. When you put those 3 together, you create a systemic issue, especially within the Black community, where you have relationships and people get together because they have things in common, but eventually the lack of finances tear them apart because they're not able to weather certain storms or deal with those things, deal with the emotional side, especially of that lack of finances. So I was able to see that, and I said, you know, I need to make a shift. I need to position myself where if something were to happen to me, at least my children's mother would be able to take care of them. And, you know, if something happens to me as it relates to my inability to work, then we don't have to be stressing about where the money is going to come from, because I put certain things in place so that my child doesn't have to say, I have to leave school so I can help take care of my dad or help take care of the household, things of that nature. You know, so with education and seeing the practical application of it, it led me in the direction that I needed to make changes. Eventually, at first, those changes were hard because they were uncomfortable. They were just ideas. But in order for you to grow, you have to experience some level of discomfort. Nothing grows in a situation of comfort. So with me making those transitions and applying the financial concepts to my own life first and saying, hey, this works. And unfortunately, well, fortunately and unfortunately, I've seen the good and bad of it with families that didn't have the proper things in place and the struggle they went through financially, especially when you're talking about death. Someone passed away and you're trying to find money to bury someone. And by the time you get through that, now you have to deal with what your body was doing in regards to grieving. And so much damage would have been caused by the stress by then. What are you going to do? There's so much catching up to do at that point. So many people have mental breaks because of that. So it's systemic, and it could lead from one thing into the next, and we take it for granted until it's us. And unfortunately, sometimes it's too late. So prevention is always better than cure when it comes to planning and making those shifts that you need to make for yourself, for your family, and for your legacy.
I did want to just kind of highlight some of the things you mentioned when it comes to relationships, and just that emphasis on relationships and how finances really destroy a lot of families, right, within the Black community. And some of the things that you talked about was, you said, even early when you were growing up, you talked about your own parents saying, you know, the lack of planning and how that, you know, caused friction, right? They didn't plan together. You said no finance, no romance, right?
Absolutely.
It's all good, right, when you're feeling all the butterflies, but when you can't go to McDonald's, right? If you can't, you know, take me out or, you know, buy nice things. If you can't do let's talk about things beyond going out. If you can't pay your rent, you see, things don't become sexy anymore, no matter how you look.
Right.
Right.
Or if she's stressed and
Right.
the birthday is coming up, but you're so focused on, I need to work because
Right.
she's nagging me, and you miss a birthday. Now you've compounded an issue.
Right. And then you talked about them together, which creates this systematic destroyer. Lack of communication, lack of intimacy, and then lack of financial literacy, right, within the
Yeah.
relationship. When you have all this happening, you see these, I guess you can say symptoms in relationships and families universally, right, around
Right.
the world. So my follow-up question is what strategies will you tell couples to do to prevent this ongoing rupture that causes Black families to break down?
First and foremost, you need to sit down as a couple and determine the goals for your relationship. Have a 1-year goal, have a 5-year goal, write it down, set a date on it, and have some objectives for follow-up on how, to measure your success as you go along to see if how far are you from achieving that goal. Absolutely important. And some of these things I'm sharing with you, I learned it on the back end because I experienced the hardship and divorce already. So, and all these things played into it, and money was a major part. So I learned them on the back end, and I always tell people, I can teach you exactly what not to do because I'm on the journey of learning what to do myself. But setting goals for your relationship, financial goals for your relationship is a big part, measurable goals. Getting financial education together. Because sometimes, the wife is interested in financial education and the man just wants to do his thing, or vice versa. And it's important that, even if you don't have the same interest level, share these concepts with each other. Say, hey, I went to this financial seminar and I learned this new trick about financing that would help us to get into a home or help us to pay off our mortgage in 10 years versus 30 years. The man may not care, but he would be interested in paying off a mortgage in 10 years versus 20 years. So that creates that level of interest where you feel now that that guy is interested in what you want to share, and it cultivates that intimacy and maintains some of that communication within the relationship. Even if you guys aren't on the same page, but if you can get on the same page, get on the same page first and foremost.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Tamara has a comment or question.
Absolutely, Dr. Caesar. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask another question. I know you asked the last question. I want to represent, I know we've kind of talked about couples and relationships, but I want to represent for those individuals single by just unmarried, never married, or divorced. And what I want to say about it is people who experience health challenges. I myself have experienced some health challenges over the last 6 years. And even with my education and my degree and background, when your health or your immune system is compromised, it can be very, very harsh in your career goals. Like, I know an individual and just the greatest person you would ever want to know, but throughout his life, he's had so many different health issues over the last couple of decades that it has impeded the type of work. Some people have autoimmune diseases that give them fatigue and different issues, side effects they may deal with. And besides COVID happening and everyone experiencing it like on a panoramic view, last year, people have not traditionally been that compassionate. And as someone with a human resources background, I hate to say it, but I've followed in that group before where I really didn't relate to someone not being able to work out. It's like, you can have it if you want it, you know, but that's not everyone's relationship. When some people are struggling with like muscular dystrophy or, you know, something like that, what do you do for people who unfortunately are dealing with health issues and they may be living on limited incomes like disability or government assistance? Those are the people who really often need a system of financial education and saving more than those who are just, I want to go and buy a Gucci purse or, you know, a Chanel bag, you know. So how do you help those people who are in a situation where they are literally living at the poverty line and they just don't see how they can save anything? Franklin, what would be your advice to those people as they're going through their health journeys or going through their poverty experiences as it relates to financial fortitude?
Good question. Awesome question. What I usually do with individuals like those who are in hardship situations, and it seems to be systemic, I try to provide as much education that I can and visit with them step by step over a period of time, because depending on where you're at in your financial journey, a certain amount of information could feel like the elephant in the room and it's too much to digest. I always, you know, have the individuals start with a budget to see exactly what's going in and what's going out. And then do a financial needs analysis to see what their financial goals are, what they want to accomplish over the next year, over the next 5 years, 15 years. And based on their budget, I say, okay, I give that hard look of what are your needs here? What are your wants? What are you spending on? What can you spend on better? As opposed to buying, you know, brand name labeled Pampers. How can you get the Sam's Club version and save maybe 40%? That's 40% in your pocket, you know, and just showing them how to do the same thing, but in a different way. That's just small nuggets of education that make your money work a little bit better and a little bit more efficient for you over time. And it gives you more money for your month in many cases when you have too much month left over for your money.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
that feedback.
I really appreciate just this wonderful discussion, and I do want to take some time to shout some people out who has been in the chat sections following along. So thank you all for commenting. Sharon D. Brown on the Facebook chat said, great discussion. She's really enjoying this wonderful conversation that we're having on abundance mentality, finances, and the challenges to accumulating holistic and wealth on a longer term. Moni, who is on Zoom, she said, great information, Franklin. Setting individual and group goals was a lesson my mommy taught me. Thanks, everyone. So please continue to use the chat sections, whether you are on Zoom or on Facebook. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Did anybody else want to have a comment? Okay, Taliba, yes.
Franklin, you've hit on a lot of very important issues. Could you lay out what you would tell a family? I used to do some financial planning and with the insurance business. Could you tell the audience some of the big financial vehicles that you would suggest to a family to first invest in to protect themselves and then move on to the accumulating wealth?
Okay, I would say overall, first and foremost, financial literacy, financial education. When you're building a financial plan, it's like building a house. You want to have primarily that foundation, period. You can't have a house without a foundation. So your foundation in any financial plan is insurance, because you're protecting your assets for if something happens today and if something happens 40 years from now. Anything can happen during that time. Life happens and anything can happen. You want to protect all your bases as much as possible. So you want to have If you're a younger family, you want to have some options in regards to a solid term policy, preferably some options in regards to whole life, to make sure that you're covering the basis. Because a lot of people don't realize, they think, especially in our community, we think, oh, I can get that later. But later, you don't think about the diabetes one that you might get. You don't think about, oh, I was living life to the fullest because I'm 22 and I'm invincible. And now you're 26 and you have HIV and you have to figure out living. And now you can't qualify for anything, or you don't know what you can qualify for. So you're not able to protect yourself financially in these areas, because health plays a big part in qualifying or being disqualified for various types of insurance. If you have young kids and your goal is for your young kids to go into college, look at tax-free vehicles such as an Index Universal Life or various types of dividend-bearing whole life policies to help grow money tax-free to set aside for college, where you can pull from and not have to risk dealing with pulling money from your 401k too early and have to deal with a tax penalty, a 10% tax penalty. Again, that enemy taxes is there. Manage your debt. Keep your debt as low as possible. Debt also can be part of your financial plan to help you get to where you want to go, but you have to be disciplined with it. If you're going to have debt, use debt to invest in assets, not depreciables. Make sure you're investing in things that are going to either create additional income for you, like starting a business or investing in commodities or whatever will provide additional income for you over time, as opposed to, hey, I have some extra money, my tax return, I got 10,000, I'm going to buy a new car just because I can. Use it wisely. Make your money work for you, because there may be a point in time that you may not be able to work for your money. Okay. And your job generally offers 401k plans. I would say some people like to max out their 401k or pay a little extra. If your job is offering like a matching plan, take advantage of whatever match that your job is offering, but try not to go above or beyond that. If you have above and beyond that, put that towards a different savings vehicle where you can at least get a return higher than the rate of inflation. Rate of inflation is about on average 3% every year. So you want to have your money in a vehicle that's going to provide for you more than 3% every year. Not like a CD or anything like that, but annuities are good. Index Universal Life plans, they're great as well. Land banking, that is good, or investing in real estate if you're able to do that. And then as you transition later on into your later years, make sure that you're able to supplement that gap that you will have in your, especially if you're like a traditional career person. Nothing wrong with having a typical job, but just know that when you leave your job, it's likely you're going to be working and receiving, if you have a pension or 401k, your 401k is going to supplement your Social Security. Most people think, oh, my Social Security is going to be good enough. Your Social Security is going to probably cover about 40 to 50% of what you were making before. And if you were saving, which in order to beat inflation and beat the tax game, you want to be putting aside at least 15 to 20% of your income over your career towards an investment vehicle specifically for retirement. And if you're not doing that, then that's going to determine what kind of gap you're going to have in your income later on in life. So that's what I would recommend. Hope I didn't go too far off the path there. But did I address your question, Ms. Tabitha? Taliba,
Yes,
sorry.
yes, very much so. Just one thing I didn't hear you say was disability policies. I'm just a big proponent for that, as well as the life insurance, because the chances of dying prematurely are lesser than you becoming disabled and not being able to go to work for a length of time.
Correct. Thank you for reminding me about that. Disability and especially at your job, voluntary plans are extremely important. So any type of disability plan, if you have a history of certain illnesses like heart attacks, strokes, cancers in your family, look into options that your job may provide as it relates to critical illness plans. Sometimes those plans are included within a life insurance policy. Sometimes they are separate. Case in point, I have the opportunity usually in the fall to visit certain companies and look at their benefits and explain to employees what they're paying for so they can actually know how the insurance works. And I had a young lady one time in Ohio that I sat down with, and I was telling her that her company was switching from, say, the Atlanta carrier that carried her critical illness cancer policy to her Ohio carrier that carries the new policy. And this is how the new policy works. And she said, I don't want to hear about that. I don't need it. I had cancer this past year and nobody paid anything for me. And I said, wait a second, you had cancer this past year and you didn't make a claim? No one told me I was supposed to make a claim, and I have $20,000 in debt sitting on my desk, and I'm trying to figure out how to pay this thing. I said, okay, let's stop telling you about the new plan. Let's look at what you have. And I showed her what form she needs to fill out. This is typically the HR job, but I get the privilege of doing that sometime because there are gaps in information. So I get to sit down and tell her, this is a form you need to fill out. If you have this plan and you had any type of cancer during this time, based on what you're telling me, you have $20,000 sitting there waiting for you. And she said, are you serious? I said, yeah, you serious. Fill out this form, fax it in tomorrow and go get your money, girl. It's your money. And she was so relieved. You could see the relief on her face because now she has information, she's empowered, and she has something that she can take action on to free her from the debt that she has, which also affects the way you heal throughout a cancer process, So having that information, again, financial literacy, having certain plans in place. If you have a history of health issues in your family, get certain plans in place to cover those bases, cover the what ifs, what I like to call the what ifs in life. Many people don't know that if you have COVID-19, there are certain benefits in your life insurance policy you can access, depending on the company and what type of plan that you have. Many people don't know that, and they're sitting at home dealing with COVID-19. And depending on the severity, they could have had money not just to pay for medical bills, but guess what? Medical insurance doesn't pay your rent, doesn't pay your mortgage, doesn't pay your light bill. So while you're sitting at home on disability, waiting for your short-term disability to be processed, you could have been getting money from your life insurance policy to address those things. Again, peace of mind. There's no true value to peace of mind. That's only based on the value you place on it.
Thank you so much, Franklin. Tamara.
Okay, pump the brakes, pump the brakes. You have just super loaded us with some great things. And I love that information you gave about the employee. There are, just someone, myself, worked in human resources. Oftentimes employees are so busy working, they don't, or they may forget something that was said during orientation, or maybe there is no one telling them, hey, this is what you're paying for. This is how you tap into it, So that's a really big thing. So I would like to say, how would someone get in contact with you past this conversation that we have? If it's someone on the line that wants to inquire about making sure they understand what's available for their job, maybe COVID-19 benefits, maybe putting together some vehicles, what is your contact information?
Sure. You could reach me. I'm old school. I like to be contacted by phone. You can reach me at my phone number directly, 404-287-1947. You may also email me at fedwards at appreciationfinancial.com, F. Edwards at appreciationfinancial.com. You can also follow up with me on my business Facebook page. That's Your Insurance Advisor USA. Your Insurance Advisor USA. And you can also go to my website, yourinsuranceadvisor.us.
Awesome.
And you can
Dr.
get in
Caesar
touch with
have
me.
it in the comments. And so anyone on here can screenshot that. And she might add it to the Facebook page, contact information too, because these are very important things. So I think Dr. Caesar gets to the exciting ending part, unless she have another segment that I'm missing. Dr. Caesar.
Oh, I think that Franklin has gave us more than what we could have ever asked for. And we really appreciate your vulnerability on talking about finances, because I know for myself that it's a scary thing, right? The emotional fear of talking about money and what people are actually going through. So thank you so much for giving us a way to start. For those of you all who are in different stages of your financial planning, I believe this conversation with Franklin Edwards has given us all something to chew on and think about and to improve our finances. And you're right, Tamara, I will be sharing his contact information in the Facebook chat. I've already shared it in the Zoom section. And this is our ending. I wish we can stay on longer, but everything must come to an end. But you can contact Franklin on your own to get more of his wonderful knowledge concerning finances, but also abundance mentality. So Franklin, you are a singer. You're a
I do a little something,
musician.
something.
You're not just a financial planner. See, you're not just a retirement specialist, but you have, artistic talents. So, feel free. Can you tell us the song that you want us to listen to that kind of gets you excited and happy, and or if you want to sing a little bit of it, you can do that too.
Or we can make it a sing along. That's cool.
Okay.
One that gets me excited, I would say Ron Isley, Living for the Love of You. I'm an old school guy at heart.
Okay, Living for the Love of You, the Isley Brothers. So we're going to, I'm gonna try, I'm not the best at words, but I'm going to sing it the best way. I got you on the course.
Right.
For sure.
Everything I did.
So give me a moment to play it. You gonna sing too?
He was
Try to do a little
super
something.
manipulative.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
Good stuff.
Hey.
Can everybody hear it? Uh-oh.
Drifting on memory. There's no place I'd rather be than with you. Loving you.
Hey.
Day will be away from night. All we need is candlelight and a song.
Hey.
So soft and warm. Glad to be here alone and another like no other. Glad to see a new horizon slowly coming into view. I wanna be living for the love of you. All right now, all that I'm giving is for the love of you.
Dang it.
That's my song.
All right.
That just me when the morning comes, feels good to me. The music still there? Okay.
Yeah, but we don't need the music.
Very
I thought you
good.
were going to. But I
lost the words, but
I think we can all do the chorus one time, y'all. You know, the chorus, which is living.
all that I'm living
living
is
for
for the
For the
love
love of you.
for right now.
That's right. You
All
have
that I'm giving is for the
Hey.
love of you each and every day.
All right.
all right. We gotta give that man a round of applause, you know.
Thank you all.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, you
Thank you.
know. Thank you so much. And we appreciate your gift to the community for sharing your
Absolutely.
knowledge on the abundance mentality, finances, and accumulating wealth.
Absolutely.
We have finished our series on Black men, wellness, self-care, and mental health. We've ended with a bang, literally talking about finances and shifting your mentality to abundant mentality. And we even sung living for the love of you, right? We have given you more than what you all have asked for. So thank you all so much for this beautiful session. And again, if you look in the chat sections on Zoom and or Facebook, I'm about to drop his information on the Facebook chat session. You can contact him. Thank you so much, Franklin, and everyone have a beautiful day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Franklin.
No
Okay.
problem. I live to serve. Thank you.
Mhm.